friends, David Paulides, CanAm Missing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel. Thanks for being here. And right off the bat, I got to get some thank yous going out from the Autos. Hey Dave, thought of you when I saw this picture of my son's first grade talent show. The junior high school students painted it for the school. Hope you enjoy the Bigfoot 101 knife that they sent. Thank you. And this is their room with my posters up. Thank you. And their TV right in the middle. Yes, you can still get posters from us signed. And the first graders, look what they painted. This is just absolutely awesome. An eagle, Statue of Liberty, the flag. Eagles are big to me. As many of you know, bald eagles specifically are huge to me. So, thank you, Autos. That is so kind. So kind, really. Thank you. And then Todd Doki sent along 5 books. Todd, thank you. But let me say one thing about books. Todd, seriously, thank you. But don't send any more books. Nobody send books. I have so many books in my corner. I have like 50 of them that I haven't even got to. The ones that are deeply important to me in our research, I've got to read those. But the pleasure reading, I've got to put that on the side for right now. So thank you for that. And a very good friend sent me this. Hey Dave, when I first saw this, immediately thought of you when it arrived. Looks so much, keep it. And they were talking about the flag. Thank you. And then another friend from Arizona, and he sent me stuff all along. He's a great guy. Fisher Price pen, and a little I Believe in Bigfoot. Jeff Mancuso. Thank you, Jeff, from Arizona. You're such a kind soul. You always think of us. Thank you, Jeff. Then lastly, dearest Miss Huck, hope you're doing well. I know you will have to have one of those two-legged people to read this to you, but that cannot be helped. Yeah, one of those two-legged people. I'm enclosing some more chewy things like last time for your amusement. As usual, there's no rawhide since that stuff can mess with your dog's tummy. I had written to your dad, but he was so busy that he did not have a chance to reply, so I had to guess at his t-shirt to have those made up and send him these gifts. If they cannot fit, give them to your mom, and if not, then you can use them as a fluffy sort of cushion to keep the floor on those short naps. There's some other things enclosed which will probably fit the two-legged, but if you don't like them, you can find other uses. Send with much love, kisses, hugs, and cuddles from me, my 2 large pups, and our 5 kitties. Sincerely, Julian Harper, an ancient widower, and Millie and Spiller, the pups. Thank you. And they sent along some great shirts. Great shirts. 4 of them. Great shirts. Thank you. And we've already gone through them and love them. Thank you. So, the cases today. I've got to tell you that we got some weird ones for you. But that's what you guys like. And there's a lot of things in our world that we don't understand. We will never understand. And that's just our life and our world here. So, the first case is in Kansas. We don't have a lot of cases in Kansas. And in fact, I gotta say, it's one of the states that has the least amount of cases of anywhere. The incident involves a young man named Kames Eckhardt, 17 years old, went missing July 15th, 1963. He was a senior at Hutchinson, Kansas High School, and he lived in Hutchinson with his parents. His dad was a psychiatrist, a brilliant man. And they had a home in Hutchinson, But during the summer months, James operated and lived at the family farm near Westfall, Kansas, about 70 miles north. Best way to describe James is super dependable, reliable, good student, German heritage. Now you might think, a boy at 17 operating a farm out there by himself during the summer. No, it's not unusual. People take on great responsibility at farms and ranches, and they learn that at a young age. And that may be an issue with some of our younger people today, that they're unwilling to take on those big tasks, and maybe they don't have that outdoor lifestyle or experience that teaches them to work really hard. James was one of those guys. He worked really hard. July 15th, Monday, James spent a great weekend with his family. On his way back to the farm Monday morning, he stopped by his bank in Hutchinson, Kansas, withdrew $100, and started for his drive to the farm. July 17th, James's mom had been calling him for 2 days straight and got no answer at the farm. Never happened before. James was always super conscientious. Good kid. So mom and dad drove out to the farm. Let me show you kind of how this lays out in Kansas. So here's Hutchinson. This is where the family lived, and his dad practiced psychiatry. If you go north, you go through Windham, Crawford, then you drive up here to Westfall. It's about a 1 hour and 23-minute ride, about 70 miles. So the family drove straight north. They get to the farm, and it's abandoned. Nobody had been there for several days. They knew it. So now they're really concerned, because his truck wasn't there either. So they start backtracking. Well, they end up finding his vehicle 9 miles south of the farm in a remote, kind of desolate area. Keys are in the ignition. It was near the Ellsworth County line. Gas was in the tank. The truck was operational. His mom and dad were confused about what he would even be doing there. There's nothing out there. It's like slow rolling hills, grazing land. No reason to be there. Parents got out, called his name, searched around the truck, didn't find anything, and calls the Ellsworth County Sheriff. The next day, the sheriff has search and rescue there. And they search the ground with ground pounders and equestrians out to 4 miles. No tracks leaving from the truck out into the field. They found nothing. They did a flyover, saw nothing. The sheriff and the family were absolutely befuddled. Imagine in the middle of Kansas, rolling hills, no big mountains, no huge trees. Well, they searched for 4 days, and on July 22nd, the search and rescue is terminated. They've got nothing. Now, imagine you're James's parents. You've got a really good kid who disappears in the middle of nowhere. I know what I'd do. I'd be searching every day out there by that truck. That's just me. I don't think I'd be able to give up. But that's just me. It was in a desolate area off the main highway, quite a distance. So it's not like he parked the truck and then got hitched a ride out of there. January 19th, 1964, about 6 months later. A rancher named Jack Vanier and his veterinarian, a man named C.A. Lindsay, were out riding on rural property looking for missing calves. Let me stop there. I cannot tell you How many people have disappeared in conjunction with missing cattle or calves? People looking for the calves, people searching for their own calves, people in the area of missing calves, like James is. It's freaky. Well, as they're riding along, they happen to come along a small wash. And in there they see a human skull. They find only the upper section of the skull, not the lower jaw. And in that area they see some clothing. The veterinarian knew what he saw. They called the Ellsworth County Sheriff. The location was near a city called Brookville. So here's the family farm, 9 miles south, and on this side of the highway, they find the remains. Sheriff comes out. There's really only one person in that area that he knew was missing. It was James. And he wanted to understand what happened. So he calls out a search. Well, son of a gun, they find one shoe of James in an outcropping of rocks 500 yards up a canyon west of the other remains. Friends, 500 yards is a long ways. They also find a sock in the grass nearby. They found James's bank book near the shoe. In essence, the remains were scattered over a very wide area. They found his jeans and his shorts near his skull, but they didn't find any large bones. They searched for 3 more days. They didn't find anything else. On January 23rd, a Kansas state pathologist stated that he couldn't determine the cause of death based on what he had. The only things missing was one other shoe and James's wallet. But the search was still ongoing, and they kept going for 3 more days. They had a second Kansas state pathologist and the Kansas Bureau of Investigation join in, as well as a forensic dentist. The forensic dentist confirmed that this was James. February 28th, a month later, Ellsworth County coroner summoned a jury. And they got all of the facts laid in front of them, trying to determine what they believed happened. Well, the coroner's jury decided that he died on or about July 16th. That's a pure guess. They have no idea. Local reports for local consumption. They stated that he died by means unknown. And a weird thing is that the coroner stated that they were unable to determine where he died. That's not normal. The coroner also said something very unique, but very missing 411. He said that the socks that were found were not on the body when James died. They also said that the shoe they found was not on the body when James died. Thank you. Sometimes we don't get good coroner reports, good information. This time we did. That was helpful. What do I say? One of the things with missing 411 is missing shoes, socks, and clothing. There you go. You tell me why James would be taking off his shoes and socks in the middle of a Kansas field 9 miles from where he was supposed to go. I'm sorry, that dog does not hunt. I read this and it reminded me of so many other cases like this, and I'm sure you guys don't remember. But That's okay. How many of you out there watch the X-Files? Do you remember those stories where somebody just dropped everything and drove out in the middle of nowhere, and it's like they were summoned? Kind of what I feel like, James. But wait, Dave? Oh yeah, there's more. There were a lot of UFO sightings near Hutchinson, Kansas. Does that have anything to do with this? I don't know. But let's go on to case number 2. And maybe that'll clear up some things for us. This case involves a man named Dan Wilson. This is Dan. 35 years old, went missing August 24th, 1988, in Custer County, Montana. The story is in my book, Missing 411 Montana. His occupation was, he was an electrician. In '86, 2 years earlier, Dan got a divorce, and he had a nervous breakdown after the divorce. And why? Because he loved his 2 girls so much and missed them. The tearing apart of his family devastated him. In August '98, Dan was at his job, a job he enjoyed, with a boss he respected and admired. He got an emotional encounter with that boss. Boss knew he was suffering anxiety and gave him the remainder of the day off. He left his work, a place called ASC Machine Tools in Spokane, Washington, and went home. Two days later, neighbors saw Dan's sprinklers on at his house for 2 days straight, running nonstop. Well, they knew his family members, and they called him, and the family came over to check, see if Dan was okay. They found his car gone. They found checks on his desk that hadn't been cashed. The luggage that he would usually take when he visited other locations and relatives was still there. It kind of appeared like he stepped out to do errands, or he stepped out urgently and didn't come back. There was no forced entry in the home. There was no sign of violence. Just like you turning on the sprinklers at your house and going to the store and coming back in half an hour. August 29th, 1988. Custer County, Montana. Now, if you've never heard of that, I don't blame you. I didn't really know it either until I looked it up. But Custer County is kind of in the middle of the state, out in the plains, not a lot around it. Custer County, Montana deputies find a vehicle facing eastbound on the eastbound shoulder of I-94, 15 miles west of Miles City. Well, here's a close-up. This is Miles City, Montana. 15 miles, there you go. Facing eastbound on the eastbound shoulder west of Miles City. "15 miles west, the vehicle was unlocked. There was a Bible sitting on the front seat. Nobody was in sight. Deputies ran the license plate, and Spokane PD had entered it into NCIC as associated with a missing person, Dan Wilson. Now, the topography in this area is a desert environment, small rolling hills, small rag bushes, weeds, kind of a foreboding environment, not real appealing. And in August, it would have been really hot. Now, something really strange happens here. Doesn't happen many times in my world. I called up the sheriff in Custer County, and a man named Tony Harbaugh answers the phone. Super nice man. I explained to Tony who I am, and he tells me the following story. The deputy at the time in '88 who found Dan's car is now the sheriff of Custer County, Tony Harbaugh. He gave me a lengthy interview. Said it was an incident he will never forget. He said that the family said that Dan had relatives in Longmont, Colorado, and Dan regularly went through parts of Montana to get to Longmont. What confused family members is why the car missed its turnoff to go south and went straight east, because it was a trip that Dan made regularly. So here's Spokane, Washington, Canadian border. So the road trip that Dan would make would take him through Butte, Bozeman. He'd get out here near Billings, and he would go south to Longmont. But he went straight east towards Miles City. Total trip Spokane to Longmont would take him about 14 hours, about 1,000 miles. He wouldn't have missed the turnoff in Billings. Once you've been to Billings, you don't forget that city. So he didn't. Anyone who thought he accidentally missed it, yeah, it was hard to believe. Deputy Harbaugh had an abandoned car associated with a missing person, and he starts checking hotels, motels, hospitals, jails. Tony said at the time that there were a lot of fires in this area of Montana. It was very smoky. Well, after all of the searching he had done, he decides to take an offer up from a friend visit as an airplane. So Tony said that his friend took him up in the plane, and they searched that whole area, didn't see anything. On the way back, the plane hits a power line, nearly crashes, lands rough. He's not injured, but he said it was strange. Remember, plane crashes associated with my cases. Well, the deputies called for search and rescue, and they searched the area by foot, ATV, equestrians. They located nothing. Now again, there's not a lot in this area that inhibits your view. You should, especially from the air, see a body or someone walking along, no doubt. September 1997, 9 years later, a cowboy's herding cattle in an area where Dan disappeared, about 5 miles south of his car, which, by the way, was operational. Several miles from the highway, cowboy comes along to a skull with teeth but no jaw. Calls the sheriff. Tony goes out. He knows there's only one person missing in this area, and that's Dan Wilson, so he goes out to check. And he searched that area with the assistance of others. He stated that it was a massive search for bones, clothing, belt buckles, shoes. Said they found nothing. Now, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but that's hard to believe. Oh, not that the search wasn't thorough. It's hard to believe that you can't find these things that last forever, like leather, belt buckles, shoes. Told you many times that searchers who have found people that have been missing for 50 years still find their shoes, belt buckles, etc. Now, more details is the skull was found in a rocky wash. It's the same as James. The Montana State Crime Lab ID'd the skull and teeth as Dan's. What's happening here? Please tell me what's happening if you think you know. Let's go back to Dan's house. That reminds me of someone who either is leaving in a rush or gets deterred somehow and gets put on another path. Why did he miss his turnoff? Or did he purposely miss it? Why would he walk into the oblivion of a desert? Or did he? What happened to all those items? Belt buckles, shoes, leather belt. I had a good long conversation with Tony Harbaugh. Great person. You're lucky if you live in Custer County. You're lucky you have him as a sheriff. He personally told me that this case made no sense to him, and it's bothered him to this day. Coroner was unable to determine the cause of death. Let's talk about both these cases. James ends up miles away from where he should be, in a remote area, vehicle abandoned, nobody around. It's exactly the way Dan's case was. Massive search. They find nothing in either case. And then months, and in Dan's case, years later, they find partial remains. Neither family can adequately say why these people went to these areas or the circumstances about how they were found. So what's going on? Well, I did a little extra work. Let's talk about Miles City, Montana. I went to the National UFO Reporting Center and I found a few interesting events. June 9th, 2019, Miles City saw a white oval-shaped object which left no trail behind it and moved very strangely. It moved to the south. As I saw it, it passed behind a cloud, then reappeared. It moved at a relatively slow speed and did not leave any trails. The object moved in a very unnaturally clean manner, not like any bird or man-made aircraft would. It was moving west and did not change its direction at all. Unfortunately, I couldn't get any media on it. Sighting 112472, August 9th, 2014, Miles City. Air carrier pilot reported to en route traffic control an object shining and fast at FL 320 over Miles City, Montana. The air carrier incident, SKW 2393 CRJ 200. CRJ 200 is a small jet operated by many different carriers, mostly United. The pilot reported a UFO at 330 radial at 40 miles westbound. Overflight at FL 330 object was shiny and fast. Reporting nothing appeared on the aircraft's radar. This is an air traffic air carrier incident entered into the Emergency Operations Network. The ZLC is the Salt Lake Center Air Traffic Control Center. Please note, I do not know how to accurately translate UTC time. It's entered as 2015. That could be 8:15 p.m. Please check the time entered on the form. Well, there's an airplane pilot commercial reporting a UFO over Miles City. October 3rd, 2011, Miles City. Lights on object emitted other objects. 3 red objects bright moving, then 3 white dispersed from within. 3 red orbs, approximately 2,000 feet above my home, went to get neighbor to see the object as it got close. The sound intensified tenfold to a deep rumble, unlike a jet. Very clear night, very visible, almost a glint from the moon shining object. Had dimension, no blinking lights too low for a plane, speed slow enough to watch go toward horizon. Almost exactly the time we were about to stop watching, 3 white lights emerge and trail off from the 3 red light formation. The frightening thing is almost as if it was looking for something on the ground. I was scared to look for too long, thinking it would come back, and it did the exact way. It came only up and out of the area at speeds at least 100-fold as its cruising speed. I have cliffs right next to my home, and the object was at least 3 times higher than those. The most intense experience of my life. I thought finding Jupiter on my telescope was awe-inspiring, but this was downright biblical in a sense. My neighbor and I submit respectively. So, I would say that Miles City, for being in the middle of nowhere, Montana, has a considerable amount of UFO activity for just a small little burg. I want to thank immensely Tony Harbaugh for giving me the interview on Dan Wilson. And I appreciate you being here, listening to this. Please share these on your social media. Comment if you will. You can get this great hat. Yes, Ben's initials on the side. At our website at NA, like North America, nabigfootsearch.com. Go to the online store. And remember, you can scroll down and you can see my appearances, where I'm going to be in the next summer at conferences and things. I appreciate you being here. Understand that I try my best to get these all accurate just for you. Paulides out.